Alright YouTube, it's time for Occult Literature video number 80, a subtle allegory on the secrets of alchemy by Michael Maier. A German alchemist, not to be confused with Mike Myers, of Halloween fame, I suppose. It is that time of year, and it is kind of funny that the names are so similar. This one's spelled differently, though, so it's okay. This is an interesting work of alchemy. It takes the form, actually, of a short story in its allegorical and metaphoric form. Most of them, they describe the physical processes of alchemy, they being the alchemical manuscripts that I've edited through, as well as those that I've read and not edited yet. Most of them simply describe the chemical processes in the terms of, for instance, boiling roots and piss or something like that. Some sort of stand-ins for the actual ingredients and processes, or they couch it in specifically biblical terms. This story doesn't do that. Maier's work takes the form of a short sort of allegorical story about the search for the phoenix, that legendary bird. Of course, it grows older, it burns to a pile of ashes, it rises again as a chick. The cover art actually for this is actually an illustration of a pelican. Well into the 17 and 1800s, pelicans were still depicted as bloodletting themselves in order to feed their chicks, sort of a phoenix-style inclusion there for no apparent reason. Now, of course, people back then also, if you look at their illustrations of whales or hippos, it's a little bit on the stylized side. I don't know that a whale looks really that much like a pig or an actual cow, but apparently they were drunk enough to think so. Now, as always, link in the description to where you can purchase my edition of this work off of Amazon, second to my books blog as well. If you're interested in alchemy, I think I've got 24 different works just on that subject now, in addition to all the folk magic, the spiritual and divine texts, the sort of aberrant paranormal stuff, the archaeological side, and the more historical religious side, the grimoires. It's literally all there. It's going to grow forever. My original estimation of how many works I would release was vastly underestimated. I'm going to be busy for the next, couple of decades at least, let's face it, on this ongoing infinite project. And I'll never knock them all out of the way because more fall into the public domain every year. It's really a fool's errand to try to keep up just with those being penned now. But this work is very interesting, if only because it appears to be unique among the alchemical works in the type of veiling that it's used. It's more on the philosophical than the physical side, first and foremost. Some of these works are more like recipes. They're very physical processes, and they may or may not be heavily veiled. The philosophical works almost always talk about alchemy in the sense of the purifying of the spirit, the planets, things like that. This work completely leaves that behind and provides a totally new type of metaphoric system. It's also an interesting little story. It's fictional. It's almost a fictional short story, in a way. It's very, very strange. But it's also enlightening because if you look at the imagery of the phoenix, the idea of something that dies and revives itself, this is essentially the process of the creation of the sorcerer's stone, through the process of putrefaction, literally the dying off of something and reviving it in a chemical manner here. We would say it would be similar to the specific parts of the process that require you to basically boil and vaporize everything down into a homogenized mush, and then all of a sudden something new comes from it that's all shiny and looks pure and it's white and foliated and so forth. So it really is technically a physical work of alchemy, but it's so heavily veiled that it actually becomes more like a philosophical work. Again, fairly unique. I think the Rosary of the Philosophers would be the closest to it in forms of being so heavily veiled. But if you're interested in this sort of material, alchemy in general, and you're more into the philosophical and allegorical side of it, this would be one of the better works. It's better written, it's more interesting than some of the others, while, again, maintaining that thick layer of metaphor, which means that if you don't understand the chemical rudiments of the alchemical process, it remains just that, just a metaphor, just a short story that happens to be talking about a sage wandering around all these different continents trying to find a legendary bird for medicinal purposes. So again, link in the description to where you can purchase my edition of this work off of Amazon. Second link to my books blog. You can peruse the left-hand side for edited works, the right-hand side for things that I've written. That's about all. Peace out.